What is up, everybody? Matt Parrino is here. Ryan Talbot is still here. Thank goodness. We had a couple days to hang out in the dorms, out on the practice field here at St. John Fisher, where the Bills just wrapped up a couple hours ago, day 4 of training camp. And it was kind of a bummer because I think we both wanted this to be the first day of pads. That is going to be tomorrow, but still a lot to dive into from today's practice.
Tons to dive into in a weird practice. Power went out about 5 minutes before the morning presser with Sean McDermott. They didn't have power throughout practice, so there wasn't the DJ Milk playing tunes. A little bit different of an atmosphere, but still a really solid practice for the Bills.
Yes, and if you notice behind my left shoulder, I got the coffee maker in here. Got a little afternoon coffee. Thank goodness, because there was no lunch today, so I couldn't get a coffee over there. I would have been in big trouble. But I brought this last night. People thought I was probably weird. I got back to the dorms at like 10:45 on a Saturday night, and I went over to the front door there, and I like parked and like had to bring up a case of water and my coffee maker up to the room. I probably look like a burglar or something.
You know, that's a wild Saturday night, carrying the water and the Keurig. So sounds like a good time.
So thank you all for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Jay Schroeder, thank you so much. He says the texts are real. Keep it up, guys. No, it takes a lot of work, but we appreciate it. And what Jay is talking about is Shout, a Buffalo Bills insider text group that is just absolutely blowing up both of our phones in a great way. You want to sign up? You want everything that we're seeing, all of our coverage texted directly to your phone? You can do it right now. Go over to joinsubtext.com/Shout Buffalo Bills or text 716-528-6727, and that will get you in the club, Ryan. It's a fun one.
Signs you up, and then you get all of the insider text delivered directly to your phone. Observations in practice, observations after the pressers, you name it. We'll have you covered all summer long, all season long.
Yeah, all of our, like I write a column after every practice about all of my observations, but all the details of it, I would say, is more so going to the text group. Yeah. So it's where you want to be for everything. And then as we go through the season, you don't have to worry about going on Twitter or social media. Everything that's happening around the Bills, we're going to get that coverage directly to your phone, so you don't have to scroll. That's been another thing that people have said has been great. Like, you don't have to go and somebody called it doom scrolling, where you're trying to find all the information from training camp. We'll bring it right to your phone. Mark, let me make sure I'm pronouncing your name. McGinley, nice to meet you guys today at camp. It was great to meet you as well, Mark, and so many people as Ryan and I are kind of walking around. Just getting a chance to say, hear people say, hey, Matt and Ryan, like, I love your work or love your content. Like, man, that fills my heart with joy, man. I love meeting everybody. Stop us out at camp. That's what we're here for. You guys are all who we do it for. We want to interact with you, and that's why we do it. And we also have something coming up in about T-1 week here.
Yeah, that's right. Monday, August 7th, Dorado, Bills Mafia, be there. Wingnuts is coming to Rochester. We are doing a live podcast. Outside of Dorado, you can have some outstanding Wingnuts wings. You can have some Dorado, Mexican food, you name it. Great beers, good food, good times. We're looking forward to it.
Phil's Scary Bad channel on YouTube says text line has been amazing. Cup of coffee and some Bills texts in the morning. That's what I'm talking about. We'll get after it every single day. And by the way, one thing I want to hear from people on the text line, and I will put it out through it's Phil Money. What's up, buddy? I'll put it out as like a poll, because we could do this kind of feature where we kind of like keyword stuff. Like, you don't have to worry too much about the back end of it. But what I want to figure out is, like, how late do people want text? Do they want text in the morning? Do they? Because when we had Andy Isabella news, you would put out a report and the Bills made it official. And by the time I was going to put something out there, I didn't want to go too late because it's already like 10:45 at night. But then I hit them with the text. Maybe they want the text at 12 at night, 2 in the morning, whenever. I don't know.
It's a tough call because we've had some Bills fans from California, West Coast that are also on this. And it's like, okay, do I want to send out a 7 a.m. one where it's 4 a.m. on the West Coast? It's tough to juggle, tough to manage. Obviously, Bills Mafia have been really receptive to it, so we'll kind of play it by ear.
Scott says he's hoping for a few drunk texts from Matt and Ryan. Maybe sometimes during camp. Maybe we can hook that up on one of the weekend editions. All right, let's get into this Bills practice today. So much to get into, and honestly, it was really hard to pick a place to start. But one observation I had throughout the day was it centered around one player and a dimension to the offense that I think has the potential to really jumpstart this offense even more so than I think we thought last year. So what I think is going to happen, and I want to talk about one play in particular that I want to highlight from James Cook, and that's who we're going to start with today. And it was nothing crazy. Josh Allen goes back to pass. James Cook runs his route, gets to the second level, and then all of a sudden, putting pressure on that deep part of the secondary, Micah Hyde's got to pick him up. Most safeties in this league, all respect to Micah Hyde, are not running stride for stride with James Cook. He blows by him on the outside, runs towards the goal line. Allen puts in an almost picture-perfect throw to Cook at the goal line. He makes the catch. Hyde recovers, tries to rip it out. He can't. It's a really good catch by Cook. But I'm starting to think more that everything that Brandon Beane talked about last year when they drafted James Cook, because of the fact that he just wasn't on the field at a high percentage, mostly in the beginning of the season, I don't think they were ever able to rep or have enough reps to figure out what that's going to look like in the offense to where James Cook kind of falls into a comfort zone. I'm going to be on the field 60% of the snaps, 65% of the snaps. These are the plays that I can make. These are the differences I can make in the offense. And I know we've talked a lot about Dalton Kincaid, but I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the defense. If now all of a sudden you have to worry about James Cook in potentially the screen game, that short to intermediate area. And as we've seen in camp already, he is stretching the field. He is putting pressure on the safeties too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said it like that, because last year it wasn't just Devin Singletary that he was behind. He was behind Zach Moss as well at this time during the season. Then obviously trade deadline, they parted ways with Moss. But you couldn't really get him a big role as a rookie because of the other backs that you had on this roster. Now, as he said on the Rich Eisen show, he is RB1, and he's been looking the part, Matt. Makes that great touchdown grab today over Micah Hyde. Had some really good runs, too, that went for big gainers in today's practice. So you're seeing a mix of it. And, the last few years, it feels like it's been a lot of emphasis on Josh Allen having to carry this team and Josh Allen having to run the ball to be productive on the ground at times. James Cook is looking productive on the ground. He adds another wrinkle or element to this passing game. He could be a dangerous element in terms of getting this team over the hump to where they want to go.
I mean, now all of a sudden, if they're healthy and you don't have James or Gabe Davis dealing with a foot injury or an ankle injury, he looked great today. I thought today there was no big splash plays to write about or talk about on Gabe Davis's front. But what I think Gabe Davis did today was just all of those little things that we've been talking about, like maybe opening up the route tree for him a little bit more, maybe allowing him to do different things. Like he had a couple of like 10-ish yard receptions that those are not only drive like igniters, but sustainable drive plays where, okay, you got a 2nd and 8 and Gabe Davis comes up with a 10-yard catch, and that just kind of re-energizes the offense a little bit, keeps it going, keeps them on schedule. So I think there's a bunch of pieces that you could look to in the offense. And I just think that with James Cook being more of a focal point of what they're trying to do, who they are as an offense, it opens up so many other things. And I got to say too, it wasn't a ton today, but I saw 2 or 3 flash plays from Deontay Hardy that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And we've already talked about Hardy quite a bit over the spring, but he had a touchdown catch on a short route where, Josh Allen, there was a little bit of misdirection. Like you can't get too much into what they were actually doing strategy wise, but the ball got in Deontay Hardy's hands with a chance near the goal line for some run after the catch. And it's almost like he just knows what's going to happen and defenses can't do anything about it.
No, that's exactly right. And, going back to Gabe Davis, he did a lot of really nice things today. Practice actually ended on what Ken Dorsey and a lot of the coaches called the touchdown pass from Allen to Davis in the end zone. But I'm going to have to agree with Micah Hyde, who was in coverage on the play. Incomplete pass. He didn't get that second foot down. Second foot was right on the white. But Gabe Davis was still making a lot of plays for this offense. And like you said, 10-yard catches, those are drive extenders. Those move the chains. Those keep your drives alive, whether it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, whatever. You get those 10-yard catches, the drive sustain and then eventually you're in scoring position, you're in the red zone, you're scoring touchdowns, you name it. A healthy Gabe Davis could really take this team to another level this year. And, I know in terms of maybe fantasy football standards, he was underwhelming, quote unquote, last year. But he still had 7 touchdowns, 800 some yards on a bad ankle. So
right.
if you think about what he could be when healthy, 100 plus targets and maybe 1,000 yards is not out of the realm of possibility.
I feel like the treasure chest for Ken Dorsey is much more full this year, right? There's so many more little potential diamonds that he can kind of pick through. I mean, really, Dalton Kincaid's arrival, and shout out to Bernardo here with the super chat. Kincaid, best pick other than Allen. And maybe if you're talking about the Brandon Beane era, I think it's a little bit too early to call him that, but there's potential to be that. I mean, if you think about it, Greg Rousseau is on a really nice trajectory. There's been a lot of good day two. I shouldn't say a lot of good day 2 picks, but there's been a good day or 2 pick here or there. And obviously a lot of hits on day 3 over the course of time. I mean, I always go back to Taron Johnson as maybe one of Matt Milano, 2 of those guys there before being started. But I think Kincaid right now, with the way that everybody's talking about him, there's so much excitement for who he can be. And I think if he's even like 50% of what Bills fans want him to be, that is a really productive piece in this offense that, again, allows other people to do more things.
Yeah, and again, Kincaid didn't have any jaw-dropping play today, but he made a ton of catches. And there was one during the 11-on-11s where Rob Boras literally came out onto the field to congratulate him, the tight ends coach, fired up for his new weapon in the passing game. I thought Dawson Knox had a nice day today too. Now
he's had a nice game.
Yeah, he
has looked like a $12.5 million tight end.
Indeed, both guys had nice days today. But Kincaid continues again to have his moments where the coaching staff's getting fired up. And before today's practice, we had Sean McDermott. One of the questions posed to him was, "You generally slow play your rookies. Is Dalton Kincaid kind of forcing your hand?" He says, "Well, it's not by intention to slow play these guys. They have a lot on their plate, from learning the playbook to, in the case of Kincaid, having to prove himself as a blocker. There might be veterans in their path, stuff like that. Right now, Kincaid has checked every box. Now, blocking is the one thing that we have to wait and see. With the pads coming in tomorrow, we might be able to get a good grasp on that sooner rather than later."
A couple guys that we'll talk about later in the show. Kareem Elam with a lot of CB2 reps today with the first team. We'll get to that. Tyrell Dotson, it was his day at middle linebacker. Not a ton of splashy plays, but I got something to say on him as well. But I want to transition really here quickly. For everybody asking in the comments, thank you for watching on a Sunday afternoon. 250 plus, we're rocking. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the show as well. If you want to be even closer to this team and know more about it, join the Shout Buffalo Bills Insider group text line. All you have to do to join, Ryan, it's simple. Just text 716-528-6727. Bang, you're in. You will get all of our texts, all of our coverage. Ryan and I are replying to questions. And sometimes if you don't hear back from us on a question, don't worry. The numbers are really booming. We're going to try to bring a lot of those questions into the show over the course of time. So if you reply back and you don't get a text back, the question will probably come into the show at some point.
Yeah, we're trying to juggle it both. Get back to you when we can, use them in our shows when we can, keeping in mind that we do these shows after every single practice.
Indeed. So let's transition really quickly here. I want to talk about, I think our good buddy, Pops Mafia Harold, in the comments pointed out Punam Ford with perhaps the play of the day. I had visions of Sam Adams rumbling, stumbling, bumbling down the sideline because it was Matt Barkley in the quarterback. Tries to throw a short pass. Punam Ford read it the whole time, got in front of the play, intercepted the ball. And listen, that's a big piece of all this. A lot of times, big guys at the line of scrimmage, not the most trustworthy hands, if you will. He makes the interception, and then he is just hoofing it down the sideline, going down. I think it was even Josh Allen, who wasn't even part of the play. He was kind of running down there, trying to mess with them, maybe rip the ball out. But the athleticism is just, it's on display. And we talked a little bit about Puna yesterday. I thought today was his best overall practice. And another guy that I want to talk about in a second, but I want to hear what you think about Ford first.
Yeah, seeing a 300-plus pound guy jump in front of a short pass, catch the ball clean and take off immediately was not something I had in my notebook for today in terms of what I was anticipating to see, but that's exactly what he did. Read the play, jumped in front of the offensive player, caught it clean, and just took off. And like you mentioned, Josh Allen not even in the play. He runs onto the field. He's chasing after Punam Ford, trying to rip the ball away. Puna takes it all the way into the end zone. It was one of the loudest plays of the day with the fans going nuts for it and Ford and the defense celebrating. Again, this is an absolute asset for this defense, and the Bills were able to get him post-draft at a reasonable rate. I mean, it wasn't the 1 year, $1.7 million that they were trying to sign guys to pre-draft, but he didn't break the bank, and they were able to still sign him after that compensatory pick formula was no longer a concern or a worry. So I really think he's going to be a key player to this team going forward, this year. And then if he does shine this year, Matt, he could be in play for an extension in season 2, which sometimes we do see.
Well, also, he's almost like the younger version of Daquan Jones in a way. And I think that he's not extended. I think Daquan Jones is going to be a guy they want to get in their long-term plan. So I'm not suggesting that, but say things go in a different direction and maybe Daquan Jones has a monster year and he's going to cost too much for them to sign. Punam Ford in a lot of ways almost becomes your safety plan, if you will.
Absolutely. And that's a good safety plan to have, Matt, when you're looking for defensive tackles, knowing how this Bills team, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, love rotating their defensive line pieces.
All right, another guy I want to get to really quick here, and I see a comment from Christy that I'm going to address here in a moment. But before we do, I want to talk about Tim Settle.
Yeah.
Because I think I was a little bit off the mark on him this offseason. And I was never in that, but we talked about Tim Settle maybe being a cut candidate, a trade candidate, right? At times I talked about maybe he's a good problem to have because not a lot of teams have that kind of talent at their fourth defensive tackle spot.
Right.
But I'm wondering if he's not going to have a larger role than we anticipated. He has looked really good the last 2 days. You saw him today out there playing with so much confidence. And it's amazing to me when I feel like the light bulb goes off for some of these guys with the defense, understanding responsibilities, gap assignments, all that kind of stuff, how they can kind of just play a little bit more freely. And I know the coaches talk so much about it, but it's not just lip service. You see it in the way that they operate on the field. Settle, I think he had a sack, maybe 2 today. He had a PBU at the line of scrimmage, pass breakup, dropping a ball down. He just looks like he's playing fast. He looks like he's trimmer. He looks like he's more explosive. The pads aren't on yet. The pads won't go on until tomorrow. We're expecting, Sean McDermott said tomorrow, we think. But I've been really impressed with Tim Settle.
Yeah, confidence is one hell of a drug. I believe that's the saying. And he's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Last year, coming over from Washington, learning a new system, learning a new scheme from Eric Washington, not necessarily being comfortable because of the lack of reps, maybe. All of those things factored in, but this offseason, he looks to be in better shape. He's making plays throughout training camp. I anticipate him being a regular part of that defensive tackle mix as long as he keeps playing at this level once the pads come on.
All right, so Christy in the comments, who is a proud Shout Buffalo Bills Insider Text subscriber, said, when you guys going to get your ice cream? Well, little inside story here for you all. The power was out, so we knew we couldn't do the show right away. We wanted to go through our notes a little bit more, put out a couple more texts, and then plan when we were going to do the show. We had to have lunch. Yeah. They weren't serving lunch here, so we had to go off campus. So we hit the Pittsford pub, which is one of our favorites. And then right after, walk next door. Check this out. Little Pittsford dairy farm. It was as elite as it remembers. And why don't you tell people what's in those canisters there?
Yeah, those are the black raspberry milkshakes. Shout out Peter King. Mentioned them last year in one of his articles on MMQB. And when I was up here, we decided to go and try them out, and they are outstanding. Definitely my go-to whenever I go to Pittsford Dairy.
So delicious. Where do you want to go next?
Oof, good question. You know what? Let's go next to some wide receiver 6 talk. And we don't know how many wide receivers this team is going to carry, Matt. We obviously have a good feel on the top 5 with Diggs, with Davis, with Hardy, Shakir, and so on and so forth. But the number 6 job, and then Sherfield as well, excuse me. The number 6 job, though, if they keep 6, is kind of up for grabs. And there's some UDFAs that had a strong spring. We talked about Keyshawn Johnson a lot in the spring. Obviously, a Justin Shorter. And today I thought Justin Shorter made a play.
Huge
kind
play.
of.
Let's get into that a
Yeah.
little bit real quick before we
Yeah,
continue.
go ahead.
Because that was really, that's one of those where you're like, oh, you perk up a little bit. Like now we're talking. If he's
Yeah.
going to do things like this, surefire catch. It was a slam. We can't talk about that. Scratch that. Don't say what it was. Sometimes I get caught off guard there, but it was a really quick pass from Kyle Allen.
Mhm.
And Justin Shorter ran a really explosive route. He got separation almost immediately. So much separation that you're almost sitting there like, oh, Kyle Allen, easy money. It's almost like you see it. It's so big. It pops right in front of you. He gets rid of the ball. There was so much separation. He gets that ball in his hands. And I think we talked about this in the spring. It's almost like he has a gallop to the way that he runs. But when he gets up to top speed, I A, wouldn't want to tackle him, and B, he runs away from guys.
Yeah, he's wearing that half cut off shirt. He's looking huge for a rookie wide receiver. He looks the part in terms of the body frame, the mass, everything else. He has this big catch, fires up the starters too, because Stefon Diggs comes over to him and slaps him on the helmet, gets fired up for him after that play. And then, I mentioned Keyshawn Johnson. Johnson kind of in that mix to maybe try to win one of those bottom of the roster spots. The team's bringing in guys for visits and signing guys like Andy Isabella off the street. You want to make this play. And sure enough, he gets his number called in the end zone. Ball's delivered to him. He jumps up and catches it over Dean Marlowe, but he can't complete it on the way to the ground. Marlowe kind of rips it out. It's just one of those plays that sticks out in your mind like, man, if you make that catch, the coaching staff's going to notice, because I really do feel like that last wide receiver job, if they carry 6 players, is up for grabs. And a guy like Johnson with a strong spring, if he could build off of that now, he can make his case to stick around.
The funny thing, though, about this team is there's no room for those Duke Williams anymore, right? Like those camp darlings that just turn into, there's passion for the fan base to make a run and make the team. But I just don't know that even a guy like Keyshawn Johnson, because now you bring in a guy like Isabella, and Sean McDermott says today that it's about speed, and that's been a priority all offseason. I mean, it's why they brought in Hardy. It's why they went out and traded for Nyheim Hines last year. They want to bring in players that can run. Even Shorter has some speed for his size.
Sherfield had a sneaky 40 time.
I think Trent Sherfield, I think there was a comment in here, has been really, really solid and consistent throughout training camp. I mean, you can even take this back to the spring. It's why Josh Allen kind of jumped out and talked about him from the jump. But I think Sherfield he makes plays when the ball is thrown his way. He's consistent. He doesn't blow you away with athleticism, but like the way that Stefon Diggs can get separated, like nobody does that. But Sherfield is just consistent. I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, I do too. And he in one-on-ones, and again, it's one-on-ones. It favors the wide receiver. He had an absolutely filthy move on Alex Austin to get open. And again, it was like tons of separation after he made this move. Easy catch, easy pitching catch for quarterback to Sherfield. So again, I could see him having a decent role in this offense. Yeah, the wide receiver situation past the top 5 is going to be interesting because Deontay Hardy has been primarily at punt returner. We saw Isabella kind of hanging out back there a little bit today. He returned a few, or caught a few at least. If he gets into the mix there, like you think about the Hines role, right? Like that's where I think Isabella's got his best chance. And then, oh, by the way, if he can be a depth guy for a Deontay Hardy, because I think their skill sets are similar. They're smaller, they're fast receivers. That's going to be interesting. We didn't see any teamwork from Isabella today. I don't think that we might not even see it tomorrow. I mean, he just got onto the roster. They probably work him in slowly in pads. And the one thing I'll say about Isabella is he was picking the brains of the receivers off to the side throughout practice. There were drills where they kind of used him as someone not really on defense. They were working through like running concepts, but he was lined up on the defense side of the ball. He wasn't actually involved in the play itself, but he was doing everything he could for this coaching staff, coming in, getting acclimated to this team. But you're right. He was back there at least on kick return, punt return, fielded a few punts, and at least had something to kind of build off of here early. Where do you want to go to next? So I was just thinking about how we're going to end the show. I'm really excited about that. But that's a teaser, and it comes from the text group. We had a great suggestion. We're going to end the show on that today. But there's more to get into here. We're up over 350 on YouTube. You guys are awesome. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get into Kareem Elam, because
was interesting because today I asked Sean McDermott about Kyer, and when you listen to Kyer talk about year 1 to year 2, and over the last couple of weeks, like when he's done media, you feel a sense of confidence coming from him that, okay, he went through year 1, he had a bunch of reps. You needed those to get to this point. So I asked Sean, like, are you seeing that? Like, are you seeing a more confident player? And it's like, he did everything he could not to specifically talk about Kyer. Like, he said, Kyer's done some good things. But as soon as he said that, he's like, so is Christian Benford, and so is Dane Jackson. It's like, all right, but I'm asking about Kyer specifically. And he's like, that's something we have to get figured out, CB2. So they're not close to figuring this out, Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, I think that going back a few weeks when we started talking about Kareem Elam maybe being third in the, betting odds, if you will, if we were setting betting odds to win this job, it still feels like that. He got run with the ones today. And just too often it felt like, I don't want to say he was scrambling, but it just felt like he was trying to recover. Now he has recoverable speed.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't want to be using that every single play. I thought he was in decent position on a ball that Dalton Kincaid, but in the end zone that went incomplete. But I thought it was more about the bad throw. It just, I don't know. Another day of Kareem Elam getting a chance. And from a practice perspective, if you walk away from that as a coach, I don't know what you think of it. I don't know if I'm running to the meeting rooms to sing his praises.
Right. And again, this is speculation on my part. The more that we see this unfold, the more I'm starting to think it's going to be Dane Jackson opposite Trey White, that the guy that they're comfortable with. And then, Benford's made some splash plays. Maybe he's the one next in line to compete for that reps. But at least when it came to the linebacker position today, Sean McDermott said, I have a date in mind or a time frame in mind to name that starter. So maybe it felt, at least in my opinion, like they were closer to having that job filled out.
Right.
Whereas he doesn't really want to speak on that cornerback job now. And that doesn't necessarily mean to me that it's still a 3-person race. I think in his mind, he's saying, unless Christian Benford or Kareem Elam step up in a big-time way, we're going to go with Dane Jackson, who's old, reliable. He's our new Levi Wallace. We feel good about him opposite Trey White. He's going to keep the plays in front of him. And it might not be the most exciting type of player if you're a Bills fan, but you understand it, too, from a coaching perspective. And quick shout-out to Scott, who just said he's awaiting his first text. So it sounds like he just joined. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Scott.
We get little pings usually when we're when new subscribers come aboard. Let's double check. Oh, baby, we got 2 since the show started.
That's right.
There's over 300 people watching on YouTube right now. We should get the tech subscribers up over 200 before the end of this episode. You know why? You get a free trial. You're just going to get to try this out for the next 2 weeks. If you're sitting there right now, just get out your phone. It's easy. I feel like we're what were those things back in the day when you were like the telemarketer, like infomercials where
infomercials, yeah.
But no, what were they called when they would be trying like for a good cause, like a charity or something, and they'd be like trying to get money.
I got.
And so they kept giving up the phone number. What were those things?
Telethons.
I feel like we're telethon hosts. Like, get out your phone right now and just dial 716-528-6727. Again, 716-528-6727. You do that. You get in, try for 2 weeks, risk-free. It's awesome. You're going to get coverage every day from training camp. I am here every day that there is a Bills practice. He's here for a bunch of them. We're going to bring you our coverage. It's going to be great. And it's going to extend into the season, guys. We have so many plans for this text line. Let's get this thing up to over 200 before the end of the show.
And you said it. It's going to go into the season too, Matt. That means in locker room, after practice. That means after games. You name it. We're going to be there. We're going to be giving you our observations before they're out there anywhere else. Well worth it. Give it a try. 2-week free trial, Bills Mafia. You won't regret it.
Sean McDermott, let's transition to the middle linebacker spot here for a minute. Tyrell Dotson back in the driver's seat today. Got to run the defense at the Mike spot. Sean was asked about Balen Spector before practice today, and he said, they wanted to get him more involved in the Mike competition in the spring, but he was a little bit banged up. And so now he's at full health. They get a chance to see what he can do. And so that will continue to kind of track Spector's progress. But Dotson, I feel like First of all, just from an observational perspective, when you see Dotson and Bernard on the field at the same time, Dotson like towers over Bernard. Bernard is a really small linebacker. I thought Dotson made a couple good plays today. Nothing super splashy that we need to talk about. One in particular, though, was just you want to talk about just dynamic offense. Josh Allen going back, great protection, surveys the field, finds Dalton Kincaid that's in a really tough spot. The closest defender is Tyrell Dotson. And when you're talking about that bullet from Allen and Kincaid running a pretty good route to get himself into open space, he had no chance.
Right. Yeah. Again, there's certain routes that they're just uncoverable. And, Tyrell Dotson's made some plays. I thought Bernard had a would-be sack to the whistle dead. So the linebackers, that whether they're running with the first team, the second team, whatever, all of them keep standing out and making plays for this defense. And that is a job where I think you do extend it as long as you have to, because it's not for a lack of plays being made. They're all making plays right now, Matt. And that is a great problem to have. Let this go into the first preseason game. Let this go as long as you need to, because, Terrell Bernard's making plays. Tyrell Dotson's making plays. Balin Spector wowed all of us when he had those first team reps. It's a great thing to see so many guys potentially stepping up into that Edmonds role.
I want to get into some one-on-ones. I don't know if you have anything more to go into the wide receiver DBs, but on the O-line, D-line, sure, there's no pads yet, but you can tell that McDermott is ramping up the physicality in practice. Like even some of we're going to talk about Osiris Torrance here in a minute as well. A little bit more on him. He played some more first team today. And so, man, is he getting ramped up? And there was some, I know you can't glean anything from these matchups because there aren't pads, but man, I'm telling you right now, there was a different level of physicality today in the teamwork. You saw it. So let's get into some of this. I thought, who I want to give a shout out to? Ryan Vandemark. Quietly, if you want to talk about from the first time I laid eyes on that kid on a practice field to right now, different level of player. Like he is a guy that has developed quite a bit. He seems so comfortable. He's getting more physical. He's trusting in himself. He had a rep today against Cortez Broughton, number 94, the defensive tackle. And Vandemark just dominated it. Every phase of it in terms of his footwork, his balance, his power. It looked like Cortez was pretty frustrated after the rep just because of how good he was. I wanted to give Ryan a little shout out there because he's had a solid camp. I think that third team offensive line at times has struggled, but when I've seen good moments, he's been kind of in the mix.
And he's, again, a big physical tackle. This is his second year in the system. Spent a lot of time on the practice squad with this team, signed that reserve future contract with the Bills. I feel like he's someone that's going to benefit from having that knowledge of the system going forward. And listen, when it comes to depth offensive tackle, we've talked about Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. They bring in Brandon Shell, but they don't have a ton of proven entities at tackle. Obviously, when you look at Vandemark, if he keeps making plays, he could end up being there. They have Tommy Doyle, who they drafted the same year as Spencer Brown, coming off of a serious injury. A guy like Vandemark could really make a statement and be hanging around to the very end at least and be a priority practice squad type player for this team going forward.
I mean, they love Quessenberry's veteran ability, right? But it comes down to who can block and who can't. And I'll tell you, it wasn't a good year for Quessenberry last year. It hasn't been great so far this year or so far through camp. Dude, Leonard Floyd in one-on-ones hit David Quessenberry with a spin-a-rooney. A spin-a-rooney. He literally hit him with the spin cycle, blew by him. It was probably one of the worst reps for any individual player. I'm sorry to put Quessenberry in that spot, but man, Leonard Floyd with an absolute dazzling one-on-one individual move, kind of what you want to see there. I thought it was a great blocking rep for Connor McGovern, beat Greg Rousseau. I think you got to notate that. That's really good that he's kind of settling in, feeling comfortable, showed off the power a little bit, the balance, all that good stuff. Great rep between Osiris Torrance, and this could kind of maybe pivot us into some Torrance talk here for a moment, against Punam Ford. And both guys had a good part of this battle. So the first part was Ford explodes out of his stance, totally blows past Torrance, who kind of trips for a moment, like just shuffles his feet, was off balance. The recoverability from Torrence then, Ford is literally blowing by him on his right side. Torrence recovers, gets his mitts on him, and drives Ford into the ground. I was like, what? And listen, part of it was because I think Ford was flying.
Right.
So he was a little bit like, ooh, I'm beating him. Like, I'm cooking. And then all of a sudden, Torrence gets his hands on you and it changes the dynamic of it. But a really good on good one-on-one battle.
Yeah, a great recovery for a young player against a savvy veteran like Punam Ford. Going back to some of those other reps, Leonard Floyd, we've had fans asking about Floyd. Great splash moment for him. Someone that, in addition to practice, has been taking some of these young guys under his wing and working with them, working on their pass rush moves and teaching them. You can't undervalue how great that is for a young defensive end room that has players like AJ Epinesa and Boogie Basham, Kingsley Jonathan. It's not just all vets in there. And even a Gregory So, who's only entering year 3. They have a lot of young guys mixed in with your Von Millers and your Floyd. So it always helps to have someone like that. I did see someone asking us if we're sharing a dorm room. No, I'm only here on the weekends generally.
You're welcome in this thing anytime, buddy. And speaking of which, we should probably drop our should we drop our bong picture?
Absolutely.
All right, why not? It's the show, it's a live show. Let me see if I can find it on my here we go. Which one do we like the most? This one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get that up. Why don't you talk a little bit about some one-on-one action that you saw?
So for me, I was again covering the wide receiver cornerback one-on-ones for this team. And 3 times today we got to see Trey White lined up against Stephon Diggs. And Diggs went 3-0 in terms of catching the ball. But for any Bills fans that are not familiar with these drills, it favors the wide receiver 100% of the time in this situation. I do want to give out a shout-out, though, to Trey White. Trey White was on Stephon Diggs on all 3 of these receptions. Diggs just made these really nice athletic catches, getting it to the right spot, getting his hands out, hauling it in. And I'm sure there's some frustration if you're White, but White could not have been in a better position. Alex Austin had an interception during the one-on-ones, but behold that woo. Defensive backs coach is yelling from the background, stop grabbing him. So you would have had probably a little laundry on the field for that one. If he can keep the hands to himself, he would have come up with a nice interception on that play. Sherfield with a nice win over Jackson. That's when I said he was filthy against Alex Austin as well. Isabella actually did have 1 rep there, and he had a win, I noted in my notes here. Elam had tight coverage on Davis. And then Elam had a win over Gabe Davis early on as well. So they kind of split them over their 2 reps. So a lot of good stuff there.
All right. So we are not sharing a room.
No.
But we told you guys all that we were going to do the Step Brothers meme.
The bunk beds.
So here it is. Check this out. Now, here's the thing. Couple things to note here. Number 1, we couldn't really make the bunk beds because they're not like there's no like pegs in here. I don't think they're actually supposed to be bunk beds. So we just like put them on top of each other for a second. I kind of held it and like we just did the picture. But listen, there we are in St. John Fisher having some fun, getting ready to do tons of activities.
So much room for activities when we did that. But you're right. Matt did not want to send my wife a text saying that I had been crushed by a bunk bed because that would have been the foregone conclusion.
But I said, dude, like you are a power guy, right? So like if I were to go up there and we were to fall, like I feel like you would have just been like
grabbed
it, just grabbed me and then just placed it over off to the side.
Up and maybe like
dude, look at those guns, bro.
Look at that.
Yeah. All right, this is going downhill. All right, we're almost at 500, by the way. Thank you so much for watching, making us part of your Sunday. He is Ryan Talbot. I am Matt Parrino. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast coming to you live from St. John Fisher College. Text 716-528-6727 right now. Just send a text. You are going to get a response and directions how to sign up to become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. There it is. The number is right on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe as well. You become an insider. You get all of our coverage, the first person to see it. are all the insiders. We're bringing a lot of different kinds of coverage.
Yeah, tons of coverage is coming your way, Bills Mafia. Matt, like you said, is here every single day. I'll be back Friday at the stadium. I'll be back Sunday here at St. John Fisher. And then throughout the season, we're going to have you too. And listen, not to go too far down the road, but we're both heading to London. Can you imagine all the content we're going to be throwing them on subtext?
I think we're getting an Airbnb. It could get real weird real quick out there.
I'm all for it.
Phil Bundy over on YouTube said you wanted to cut a promo so bad that when you had the pipes up.
Let me tell you something, brother.
Okay, all right, that's
okay.
Enough. All right, he's Ryan. I'm Matt.
Don't forget about the spinneroonie.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not letting you off the hook for that.
That's right. Promise. So Scott said, he asked, what is a spinneroonie? Maybe not everybody knows what that is. So I was going to demonstrate for everybody here at home. Make sure you sign up to become an insider. We're almost at 200 people. You guys are awesome. We'll be back tomorrow with another camp episode. Pad's going tomorrow. It's going to be fun. All right, check this out. You ready? Tilt that thing down a little bit.
All right.
Yeah. Tilt it down. There you go. This is a spinneroonie. You go down on one knee, just like Booker T. Put your hand up like this. Go a little bit crazy and get ready to. Dude, you were supposed to stop it.
No, you
bro.
said we'll see you next time.
You were supposed to stop it before I even tried to do the thing. It's still going.
We'll catch you. We'll catch you tomorrow, Bills Mafia.
Dude, you gotta hit